right? What was happening at that time? Okay, what happened at the time that I am trying to make you understand the concept of debt restructuring, right? What is happening in debt restructuring? Let me find out some empty page. Here we will try to understand. Yes. See, what is the debt restructuring? For example, if an individual took loan in 2004, right? And in 2008 there was recession, right? So bank is assuming that this phase of recession will be over, right? In the same way, right now what is happening in 2020, this is the time of COVID. So bank or RBI is anticipating that this 2020 time is something uh, less productive. That's why companies are not in a position to pay back, right? That means what happened in 2004, the corporate houses which took loans in 2004 could not pay back the money by 2000 and 2008 arrived. That means what RBI did, RBI came up with the schemes. For example, there was a loan of 10 lakh rupees, right? There were n number of schemes for debt restructuring. At least 4 to 5 schemes were there, right? So what had happened, for example, it was an EMI of 10,000 rupees per month, right? Now the corporate house is not in a position to pay back 10,000. Now what RBI will do, RBI came up with the concept and stated that okay, do one thing, you start paying your loan or EMI only 5,000, right, for 4 months, right? Or what RBI can do, RBI can came up with the concept of moratorium period. What recently RBI has announced moratorium period twice for common man, right? 3 months each. That means RBI has given moratorium period for 6 months for common man. In the similar manner, RBI in 2008 came up with various schemes. Or for example, another you can take idea is evergreening of loans. What happened in this, that RBI, for example, initial loan was at the rate of 8%. Now, in 2008, what RBI came up with certain guidelines and banks start giving fresh loan at the rate of 7%. That means this rate of interest was 1% less than this. Now, what this corporate house did, it took the loan at 7% and it paid back the previous loan, which was taken at 8%, right? So these are something which we will try to understand later on, but debt restructuring means that you are trying to restructure the debt so that the individual who have taken the money can repay the money conveniently, right? And it takes into account all the pragmatic things like economic condition and n number of factors, right? So this is about debt restructuring. So what RBI is planning to do is to be finalized by the committee. I think KB Kamath has been made the chairman of that committee, right? So this is all about debt restructuring which RBI is planning to implement in the coming days. Any other question? Now, we have discussed the concept of net, right? If you go backward, then we have understood the concept of gross, domestic, and product, national, right? These concepts are being discussed. Then we have discussed the concept of net, right? Net is considering your depreciation part. Now coming to net national product. Net national product means, that means it is taking into account, first it is final product, second it is concerned about the nationality, Then third, it is taking into account your depreciation. So when your GDP is being depreciated, GNP is being depreciated. That means if GNP minus depreciation, or GDP taking all the abroad factors, net income from abroad factors, net income from factors abroad, right, minus depreciation. This is all about your net national product, right? So whenever you are discussing these concepts, be it GDP, GNP, NNP, NDP, whatever be the terms, please go in literal terms, right? Start with the first term. For example, net. Net means depreciation. Domestic. Domestic means you are concerned about this geographical territory, and product means final, right? We have to discuss this final concept in the coming slides. Technically, national income. This is the technically national income. It is mentioned in your NCERT, and for GDP and all this chapter, please go through the NCERT. It has been discussed very elaborately. 12th class macroeconomics, right? Please go through that chapter. I think it's chapter number 2, right? Go through that book only and try to have the updated version, right? Because the recent version, either you can download it from this NCERT portal. So this chapter has been discussed in a very elaborative manner, right? So national income is nothing but net. It is clear. That means it is taking into account your depreciated value. National, that means it is concerned only about the nationality. Product final. At factor cost, this we will discuss, right? So now first we will try to understand the terms factor cost, basic price, and market price. See, try to understand these terms very intensively, right? Because domestic exports of tomato. Actually, prior to this factor cost, I'll try. Come to this slide. I'll discuss this later on because many of the queries are from this part only. There were queries from yesterday and this time also. See, in NCERT, though I don't think that UPSC is going to ask you that how many methods are there to calculate all these things. In your NCERT, it has been discussed at length, right? In 2 or 3 pages, they are only discussing that how GDP is being calculated, right? But I don't think that UPSC is never going to ask you all these things, that how it is being calculated. It's just for your understanding, right? So try to understand how GDP can be calculated. Now in your NCERT, it is taking a simple model. It is being stated as circular flow of income in a simple economy. In this model, NCERT is assuming that in the economy, there are only 2 things, right? There is form is factory. There is a single factory. And this is household, right? And besides this, we are having government, right? And private, corporate, and this is international aspect, right? That means abroad. Now your NCERT is saying that there are 3 methods of calculating your GDP, correct? Now what are these 3 methods? For example, what is happening in this economy? This is household, and it is being assumed that this household is providing services in the form of factor services. Factor services means it is providing you labor, right? Entrepreneurship, land, and capital, right? These 4 things are being provided this household, right? So one method is, in lieu of providing all these things, this household will be earning certain incomes. this income is being said that to be factor payments. Now in this point of discussion, it is assuming that there are nobody in the economy except this firm and household. So if you go by this method, this is income method, it is being assumed that households are providing this factor services, right? And in lieu of that, there is income of the household which is said to be factor payments, and it is being assumed that this is the only income of the household and this income is being received from the firm, from the factory. So if you take into account the income method, that means the household is earning wages, rental rate on capital, firm profits, right? So this is all about the income of the household in an economy in which all other factors are constant. This is one of the method. Now in the second method, if you go by the second method, then this is expenditure method. Now it is being assumed that this is a firm, and how it will earn, right? When it will earn, for example, first of all, this household will purchase something, that means spending of the household in the form of consumption, right? In the form of consumption. Second, there might be certain private individuals, private businessmen, which will purchase something from this firm and put it in the form of investment, right? Private consumption, private investment means this, because we are assuming there is a single firm in the economy. That means every requirement of the private firm will be fulfilled by this firm. That means all the private investment will be counted as an income of firm, because all the things are being purchased from this firm, right? That's why this firm, first, these household purchase things from it, that is consumption from by the household. Second, all the investment of the private sector, right? And third, the government will also undertake various infrastructural projects, and for that it is being assumed that this government will also purchase everything from this firm, because there is only single firm providing everything for the economy, right? So the third component, it is the government. That means everything being purchased by the firm from this, by the government from this firm. And the fourth factor, the fourth earning is, if you take into account the open economy, what is being asked by Suman, right? The fourth component, if you are taking into account the economy as open, right? So the exports, right? And there might be import, and there will be expenditure in the imports, so it will be net, right? So net exports, we will take into account net exports, right? So if we take into account the expenditure method will be all the expenditure done by the individuals in the economy, or you can say it otherwise, the income earned by a firm by selling or selling everything in the economy. So who will be buyer in the economy? First, consumption or the household. Second, private sector or the businessman. Third, the government. And fourth, the abroad, right? So these are the four components which is said to be the part of. So this is given in NCERT. It is saying that consumption, right? It is investment, it is government, it is export, it is import, right? So this is the factor of abroad factor, international factors, right? So this is given in your NCERT, but don't go into word by word to understand all this GDP, because UPSC is least concerned about everything what has been given in the NCERT. I am giving you the gist, and I am discussing all the things which can be asked by UPSC, right? This is the second method. Now the third method is production method. This question was asked yesterday by someone. Production method, right? What is this? Production method means, okay. Production method means, yesterday we discussed, as we discussed in that, while we were discussing GDP, we were discussing final goods, right? Now try to understand this example and you will be understanding everything. Sir, does the investment in expenditure method also include buying of shares of the firm by private individual? See, in this example, we are not considering anything like market is existing in that manner. We are just trying to understand that it is a simple model, right? If we try to bring share market into the scene, right, it will make the things complicated. But you are saying also buying of shares of the firm by private individual buying. Yes, yes, it is a sort of investment. See, what we did here, we were saying that it is factor, there is something factor payments. What is factor payment? In factor payment there is one component which is saying capital. What is capital? If you are buying share of a company, it is nothing but you are infusing the capital into the company, right? But I have tried to remain it simple. That's why I'm not including all those things. But yes, whenever you are buying share in the company, for example, a person, Mr. X from this household purchase share. Purchasing share means you are infusing capital, and capital is nothing but factor. This is factor, part of factor services, what we discuss factor of production, right? So in return of this capital, what this individual will get? Factor payment, factor payment interest, right? Here it is not rental rate on capital. This is nothing but your interest, right? I think you got your answer. Right. So yesterday there was somebody was talking about that what is the concept of this final good, how we come to, if anything is being sold in restaurant, then what will happen to the final good, and number of permutation and combination. Now first try to understand this. From here everything will be clear, right? The example is that this farmer, we are concerned about a bread, right? And this, it assumes that he's a farmer. A farmer is having an input of 500 rupees, 500 rupees wheat, right? And it is being assumed that this wheat belongs to farmer and farmer has added nothing to it, right? It is only the property of the farmer. That means farmer has added, initially it was everything was given, farmer has added 500 rupees to the economy initially. That means farmer have 500 rupees wheat with him, and what he did, he sell the wheat to the miller, flour mill, right? And what flour mill did, it sell the flour in 700 rupees, right, to the baker. What the baker did, the baker now sell this bread for rupees 1000, right? Now it is clear. Now see, try to understand what we will understand from this. The farmer sell this wheat to the miller at 500 rupees, right? That means the value added by farmer to the economy was rupees 500. Now what miller did, the miller took wheat at 500 rupees and sell it as 700 rupees. What is the difference? It is a difference of 200 rupees. That means the miller added a value of 200 to this wheat. By this wheat is converted into flour, then only it is being sold. That means this wheat is being added the value of 200 rupees, then only it is being sold as flour, right? That means the miller added value of rupees 200 in the flour, in the wheat. And third thing, when it is being sold to the baker, now come to the baker, what baker is doing? Baker is selling the bread, and this bread is being made up of the flour, which is costing rupees 700. That means what is the value being added by this baker? The value added is of rupees 300. Now it is finally sold to the consumer. If you again said that here, if you are saying that it is going to the restaurant, then this restaurant will be its final consumer rather than this. This consumer can either be the restaurant. First thing. Now the issue is how we will calculate the GDP in this case. there are two methods of calculating the GDP, right? First thing, we have to understand that why we were using the term final product. Final product we were saying because if you see this if you see this image, then if you say that farmer is creating value of 500, then this flour mill is selling this flour at 700, and this bread is being sold at 1000. That means total amount in the economy becomes 500 plus 700 plus 1000. That means the economy is having the transaction of 2200 rupees, but it is having a caveat that there are various things which are being duplicated. For example, this wheat is counted thrice because it is counted here also, because this floor value is having the value 500 plus 200. That means wheat plus flour mill. If you see this 1000, what does it include? It includes wheat plus flour mill, right, plus baker. That means wheat is being counted thrice, 2 and 3, right? That means wheat should be counted once, right? So there are two methods of calculating the GDP. From both the methods, the answer will be the same. Now, what can be the method? One method is calculate the value at the final consumer. What is the final consumer? The bread was sold at rupees 1000. That means this whole process, as per the definition, stated that the GDP is being contributed with rupees 1000, right? So the final contribution of this process into the GDP is of rupees 1000, because the final consumer is being sold this bread at rupees 1000. This is the final product. After this, it is being assumed that this final consumer will be consuming this bread. So this is the final consumer. This is the final consumer. After this consumer, this bread will not be transacted. Keep it in mind. He is the final consumer. He can either be restaurant, and in restaurant, the final consumer will become Mr. X, who will be dining in the restaurant, right? So assume that he is the person who is being served bread in the restaurant, right? Now coming to the second part, which is very important. It is very complicated, right? Try to understand that. So while we are considering the final product, you have to do nothing except that that thing or that product, value of that product will be counted at the last customer, nothing else. It shall be the final price. See, final price means, for example, okay, for example, if you are aware of the regime, this GST regime, right? In GST regime, what is happening? For example, if you purchase this thing, actually these things now you will understand later on. For example, this person is purchasing something, right? So for purchasing of this 700, he has to pay GST on rupees 700. Keep it in mind. He has to pay GST on 700, right? Now this baker has only added a value of rupees 300. That means he should pay tax for rupees 300. Are you getting my point? The person, what is the provision of the GST? In GST, what is happening? You are supposed to pay on the value which you are adding to the product. That means this baker is only adding value of rupees 300. But when he purchased this flour from this miller, he is paying tax at 700. What does that mean? It means this person, the baker, is at a loss of, for example, if it is having GST of 18%, that means he is having loss of 400 into 18. That is 72 rupees. So what is the provision, right? The provision is initially he is paying GST at 700, but later on he will file, there is a concept of input credit, right? He will fill a form with GST with the income tax department, will state that look, I have only added a value of 300 rupees, but as a raw material, I have paid income tax or indirect tax at rupees 700. So please credit this difference of 72 rupees in my account, right? So what does it mean? It means that the consumer, it will be decided when here will be the last consumer, right? This process will end here. That means there will be no concept of payment of GST from this point onwards, right? So what does it mean? It means that when the consumer will be the last, from that onwards there will be no concept of GST payment, right? So when there will be no payment of GST, that means he will be the last customer. For example, if you are going to purchase anything from the market, you are not supposed, because you are consuming it, that's why there is no concept of GST payment by you, right? But if that bread is again taken by an individual, for example, this it is a next in retail, and here it is wholesaler, right? Then this process which we try to understand here, this process will be replicated here in the same manner, because this retailer will file a GST, right? And he is supposed to pay GST only on the profit he is earning, right? He's supposed to pay GST only on the profit he is earning. Why he will be paying GST on rupees 1000, right? So that means the system will let the income tax department know that who is the final consumer. Final consumer, for example, if I am consuming for me, then I am not supposed to pay any GST, right? I think it is clear now. So the final price is when anything is for the final consumption. If any further it is being consumed, then again this process will again it will be elongated. Another step will be added to this concept, right? Now, so we try to understand that what is the concept of the final product, how you will calculate the GDP in this scenario, right? Now, second method is value addition, right? Try to understand this method. What does it mean? Because now GDP since 2015 is being calculated based upon this GVA method, right? What is GVA method? The method is gross value addition. What does it mean? Gross value addition means you are adding value at every phases. Prior to GST, there was concept of if those individuals who are not aware of GST, it is nothing but indirect tax, right? Prior to GST, even many of the states implemented right. So value addition means, what does value addition means? Value addition states that every process is interlinked and you are supposed to be accountable only for the value added by you. For example, this farmer is only accountable for the taxes for the value for which he is adding, right? So this is the 500, then this farmer is liable to pay only the taxes on rupees 500. This miller is only supposed to pay the taxes at rupees 200, and this Mr. Baker is supposed to pay taxes only at 300, right? Now try to understand this. We will try to calculate the GDP by the method of GVA. What is the process? Now it states that this farmer added the value of 500, this miller added the value of 200, and this baker added the value of 300. Now tell me one thing, how much value is being added by different individuals, and what is the collective value added in this process? It will come out to 500, 200 and 300. That means 1000 rupees. What is the value here? It is 1000 rupees. That means, yes, that means the values from both of the method is similar. It will come out to be 1000, right? So what is the benefit of this consideration? Why this method is beneficial? This method is beneficial in the sense that from this GBA method, you are taking into, you are considering every sector differently. right? In GVA, you are analyzing every sector differently. And finally, what you are doing, you are calculating the value of GVA of every sector and adding all the GVA of all sectors. That means you are analyzing particular sectors in a more intensive manner. This is the beauty of this GVA. Now try to understand it in more elaborative manner. Right. Coming to this part, first you have to understand what is factor cost, what is basic price, what is market price, right? What happens, factor cost is nothing but what we discussed initially, factors of production, FOP. Any cost incurred on the factors of production is your factor cost, right? So for example, if there is a factory, this is a factory, right? You started a factory, and for every factory, those who are in geography, having the geography background, they might be aware that whenever you start a factory, then first of all, what is required is the four factors of production. Even we discussed in the initial classes that factors of production are responsible for every industrial setup, right? So whatever is the cost being incurred on this factor of production is the factor cost. This is the fundamental cost which is incurred in a factory. Keep it in mind. This is the very first cost incurred in the production, right? Everything comes after this cost. So first very basic cost is factors of production, the cost incurred on the factors of production. So keep it in mind, whenever you are talking, it is the raw cost, right? It includes nothing. Keep it in mind, it is neither including any tax nor subsidy. So the raw cost which is being incurred on any of the production is factor cost, right? Now try to understand one more concept. There is a concept of production tax, right? I'll get back to it. Now assume a situation, for example, there are two type of taxes or subsidy. One is production and another is product, right? Normally you are aware about the taxes like sales tax, right? GST, right? And all these type of taxes. So most of these tax are actually taxes which are unit based. For example, if you are purchasing 1 kg of sugar, right? So there might be a case, no, we will take example of fertilizer or petrol. It will be easier to understand petrol, right? So what happened in case of petrol, what you are doing when you are going to purchase a petrol, then you might be hearing that there are state taxes, right? And many times you have heard that for example, there are subsidies on diesel subsidy, right? So these type of taxes and subsidies are actually per unit taxes or subsidy. For example, if you are going to purchase 1 liter of petrol, then for example, it might be a possibility that you might be paying, for example, assume 10 rupees of taxes on 1 liter of petrol. So if you are purchasing 2 liter, that means you are paying 20 rupees of taxes, right? That means your taxes implication is per unit implication. For example, the taxes implication is increasing per unit. If you are buying 5 liter, then it becomes 50. If you are buying 20 liter, then it becomes 200, right? That means, and it is your day-to-day understanding, whatever you are paying, it is your day-to-day taxes, and it is said to be product tax. In the similar manner, if you are paying, if you are being provided subsidy, right? Again on diesel, right? Take it at diesel. So what happens if you are being provided by the government 10 rupees subsidy on on 1 liter, then on 5 liter it will become 50, on 50 liter it will become 500, right? That means it is the subsidy is again per unit subsidy, right? It has nothing to do with like that. For example, you will be paying anything on the per unit basis. Now coming on to production tax, right? What is it? It is something unique, and you might not be aware about this thing. For example, I'll try to explain it with an example. Yes. There is the concept of, for example, SEZ, Special Economic Zone, right? And IT zone, better to understand through most of you people are in IT companies. And for that, there are IT SEZs are established. Information Technology Special Economic Zone, right? Or any area which governments plan to develop as an industrial hub. So initially what government did, initially go, for example, now start that for starting any industry or factory or any your institution, you require land. So the industrialists will come and purchase the land, and for this purchase, what happens, that individual has to give stamp duty, right? And stamp duty, and there will be various taxes, other taxes, right? For example, there is octroi tax, or there might be certain environmental tax and number of taxes. Now, what happened initially, that all these taxes are one-time taxes. Keep it in mind. This stamp duty is being given once in a lifetime. It will not happen that industrialist is being asked to pay the stamp duty every year. It is not a recurring cost, and it has nothing to do with the production. Keep it in mind. It has to nothing with the production. Either you produce 1 liter of petrol or 1,000 liter of petrol, right? This tax has nothing to do with it. Stamp duty is fixed, right? So the production tax is, it is nothing but these are paid or received with relation to production and are independent of the volume of actual production. They has nothing to do with the volume of actual production. Once you plan to start a factory or set up any institution, then you are supposed to pay these taxes, or you are being subsidized. For example, the government came up and stated that, okay, don't worry, I will pay you the stamp duty. You are not supposed to pay the stamp duty. Or they can say that, okay, the land is costing you around 1 lakh rupee per biga, or any unit prevalent in your area, right? Then they will say, okay, don't worry, we will provide you at a subsidized rate, at the rate of 75,000 rupees per biga. All right. That means they have given you subsidy of 25,000 rupees per biga. Right. What does it mean? This is one time subsidy. It is not of a recurring nature. While in case of product tax or subsidy, it is of recurring nature. The value is per unit. This is per unit, right? So production tax and product taxes are different in the sense that production tax is one time, right? And it has nothing to do with the volume of actual production. And these taxes or subsidy are used or counted once in a lifetime, right? I think you are clear with the concept of production tax, production subsidy, and product tax and product subsidy, right? Any doubt? Then I'll move to the previous slide. Any doubt in this production tax or product tax? I think it is clear. Production and this product part is clear to everyone, because many things are dependent on this concept. Okay, right. Coming to this part, we have discussed this factor cost. Factor cost was nothing but it was the cost incurred on the factors of production. Sir, is VAT a product tax? Absolutely, it is a product tax, right? Basic price, right? Basic price. Prior to basic price, try to understand this market price, right? Market price is nothing but the price which you are paying. Simple. If you see this thing, then this is the market price. In this case, this 1,000 is the market price. The price which is being incurred by the last consumer is the market price. Right now, see what is the why I am trying to make you understand. This market price is having the product taxes. For example, if you purchase the petrol, what we discussed, then in that cost, it accounted the VAT, sales tax, whatever it is accounting everything. It is accounting product taxes, and it is uh, lessening the part of subsidies, right? So factor cost is something which is being incurred on the factors of production, and market price is the price which is being given by the implication is on the last customer, right? This is factor price and market price. Now, what is basic price, right? Mostly you will find everything about factor cost and market price in most of the books, right? But this is to be understood. This is basic price. The basic price is actually the price which is at the factory gate. This is also known as factory gate price in many books. Factory gate price. Or many a times it is also said to be producer's price. See, please don't go into more detail that producer's price in many books will talk account that it is not taking into account the logistic part, transportation part, because when the things are going from this to the last customer, right? So there will be transportation. So please don't go into that sort of detail. It is not required at all, right? So only understand that this factory gate price is nothing but what it will include, right? What it will include. I stated that initial cost incurred will be at the factors of production. That means it is the factor cost, right? And along with the factor cost, it will be also accounting for production taxes, because it is fixed cost. It is a part of fixed cost, right? So the individual will also be accounting this partner production taxes, because it has to take out this money also. So when the value is being finalized, then this part is also being incorporated. See, whenever you are deciding the rate of anything, then it is having two components. One is variable and one is fixed cost. Fixed cost is nothing but this cost, this production taxes, one time this up one time land tax and all these things, right? And variable cost is the cost of raw material, right? Because if you see the factors of production, in factors of production there are again three or four components, in which, for example, capital invested, land is a fixed cost, right? So the businessman has also to take out that money also now. So every cost includes two components, that is, one is variable and another is fixed cost. So the cost at this factory gate will include first the factor cost, and second the production taxes minus production subsidies. So basic price is nothing but the price at this factory gate, right? So basic price is nothing but the price at this factory gate. When this factory gate, now start another story from here. When this product is out of this factory and went into the market, then it is having implication of product taxes. So when you are counting the implication of product taxes, then it is available in the market at the market cost to the customer, right? So this is how things started from factor cost, right? When production tax minus, I have not written subsidies here, right? So everywhere where there is production tax, put it minus subsidy, right? This is for your understanding only, right? So when the implication of production taxes is being counted in this, then it becomes basic price, and this basic price is nothing but the price at the factory gate, right? So this is how the things are, this factor cost, and this, please try to understand this, and if any doubt then please ask me, right? I'm giving you 2 or 3 minutes time. Try to understand the concept of production cost, because it is very critical to understand the further things, to understand the GVA concept. If you have understood this, then there is no point in you have understood the GVA, right? I'm giving you 1 or 2 minutes, please. In the equation given, factor cost plus production taxes, okay. See, factor cost plus production taxes is nothing but it is the basic price. It is the basic price. Or you can say factory gate price, or you can also say in many of the books you will find it as producer's price. And secondly, I think there is no second class, so we will continue as long as you are comfortable, right? So that many things, more things can be covered. Right, so I think it is clear to all of you that what is the concept behind this factor cost, production taxes. Um, so you might be aware that of the difference between production taxes and product taxes. Keep it in mind, right? It will be confusing, right? So be clear with the concept that production means it is independent of the production, right? While product tax is, it is dependent on the unit of production, right? So I am moving ahead. Okay. So it was clear that how we are calculating the value of GDP, whether at the final product or in the methodology of GVA. Now, try to understand the relationship between GDP and GVA, right? GDP of any nation represents the sum total of gross value added in all the sectors of that economy during the said year after adjusting for taxes and subsidies, right? GVA is defined as the value of output less the value of intermediate consumption. It is used to measure the output or production contribution of a particular sector. When such GVA from all sectors are added together, we get the GDP, right? Does electricity or water subsidy given by government come under production tax? See, there can be two type of electricity subsidy or water subsidy. For example, if you came up, if you are starting a factory, there are initial fixed charges of the electricity, right? Electricity fixed charges means they are independent of the production. For example, you want to for that you will first having the transformer, right? There are certain charges, electricity charges initially. For example, there is license fee of, for example, for industry, there is license fee of rupees 1 lakh rupees, right? So if this is being, the rebate is given on this 1 lakh rupee, then it will be a rebate of one time. That means it will be production tax. But for example, if the rebate is on recurring basis, right? For example, if you are consuming electricity and the state government stated that we will be we are giving for example this corporate electricity at the rate of 7 rupees. See, don't worry, this is very costly in UP. I think it is more than 7 rupees per unit. I think it is cheaper in Hyderabad side. In southern states, it is cheaper, but in UP side, it is very costly. 7 in UP for this common man, even in the flats, we are having it at around 7.50, right? For corporates or these businessmen, it is more than, I think, 14 rupees per unit something, right? So product subsidy means if the government says that, okay, the individuals who are setting up IT industry will be provided the electricity at the rate of 10 rupee per unit, right? So this subsidy is recurring nature, right? 4 rupee subsidy is being given per unit of electricity. It will be product subsidy, while this one time subsidy will be production subsidy. I think it is clear now, right? So GVA is nothing. GVA is actually you are focusing on a single sector, right? You are focusing on specific activities. That means GVA helps you to micro analyze the sector, right? What was happening in the previous methodology that you were counting the GDP in totality, right? So you are not concerned about, for example, if you see this again, we go to this method. This is simple. This is simple example of this how the bread is being produced, but practically the things are very complicated. For example, there might be n number of inputs to this process. If you take, for example, if you are talking about auto factory, for example, car production, right? So there will be n number of inputs to this process, right? And it is not compulsory that that n number process is from the same sector. Are you getting my point? It might be a possibility that that auto sector is using some service, right? Or it might be a possibility that that factory might be using some anything from farmer, right? So it is agriculture sector, this is tertiary sector, and this factory of auto industry is part of manufacturing secondary sector, right? So but we were concerned only about the final product. That means it was supposed that this for example, here it was car. If we go by the method of final product, that means we are assuming that this output is from the secondary sector, right? Without taking into account this service sector or this primary sector. Now, what is the benefit of this GVA? That means we are focusing only on this sector, right? We are considering that which part is being added by which sector, right? So by GVA method, we are focusing on a particular sector. So what does it mean? It is telling you about a particular sector. So in GDP, what was happening? If you are getting GDP, for example, GDP is growing at 10%, right? But it was in totality. Now you are getting this 10% by that GVA method. That means you are knowing more elaborately about a particular sector. So if you find any problem with a particular sector, then you can say, yes, this is the problem with this sector, and you have to take corrective measures to improve upon this sector. So this is the beauty of the GVA. Right. Now, what is happening in GVA? This is GVA at factor cost, right? Plus production taxes minus production subsidies, and it becomes at GVA at basic price, or GVA at, or it can be said at producer's price, sum of GVA at the basic price. Now if it is being added product taxes minus product subsidies, it is at GDP at market price. And now keep it in mind, GDP is calculated in this form. The official measurement of GDP is being done at GDP at market price, right? Keep it in your mind and cram it that nowadays GDP officially is being calculated at GDP at market price. That means this you are taking into account all the product taxes, production taxes, product subsidies, as well as the production subsidies, right? So this is all about the GDP at market price, right? So if you go by definitions, GDP at market price is equals to one thing more. GVA is for a particular sector, while GVA, summation of GVA is for the economy. Summation of GVA is nothing but GDP of the economy. So GDP at market price is equals to GVA at basic price plus product taxes minus product subsidies, and GVA at basic price is equals to at factor prices plus production taxes minus production subsidies, and GVA at factor prices is cost incurred on factors of production. So this is the most basic thing. This is the most basic thing, most crude thing. After this comes basic, then comes market price. Anything you want to understand, please ask, because I'm moving ahead. This is from your NCERT. Now see, any doubt? Now see one thing. Now we will try to understand that what do you mean by that? How will you compare the GDPs, right? This thing is very elaborately discussed in NCRT, or it's very beautifully, right, put in the words in NCRT. The example is, for example, see, start from here. The example says that a country only produces bread. The economy, it is being assumed that the economy is producing only the bread, and in year 2000 it had produced 100 units of bread, right? And the price was 10 rupees per bread, correct? Now GDP at current price was rupees 1000. Simple, 100 into 10,000. Or you can say the GDP in 2000, in year 2000 was rupees 1000. Assuming that everything is constant, only the economy is having a single factory of producing the bread, right? Now, now came in 2001. In 2001, the same country produces 110 units of bread at rupees 15 per bread, right? Now, this was 2000. Now in 2001, right? Scenario one, consider scenario one. In scenario one, the country is still producing 100 breads, right? And in scenario two, country is producing 150 bread, right? But there is a change that cost of bread in 2001 is 15 rupees, right? Now in 2001, the GDP becomes 100 into 15 is equals to 1500. Are you getting my point? Now, in 2000, we were having GDP of rupees 1000, while in 2001, we are having GDP of rupees 1500. That means if you see in terms of these numbers, everybody will say, anybody can say, yes, GDP is increasing. It has increased from 1000 to 1500. That means a leap of 50%. You get this point? Now, take it in another way. In 2000, we were producing only 100 breads. And in 2001, we are still producing 100 breads. Effectively, is there any increase in the production? Not at all. There is no increase in the production, keep it in mind. So the GDP, it's still, the production level of the GDP, it's still same, right? The value of the GDP in terms of production, it's still same. That means GDP has grown because of inflation. The GDP has grown only because of the inflation, but it has not grown in the real sense, right? Try to understand this concept. Initially in 2000, we were producing 100 breads. Now still we are producing 100 breads, right? But now it is costing rupees 15. That means the GDP has grown to 1500, but in real sense, it has not grown in terms of production, right? Is there any doubt to understand this? Ask this. Right. So when you are calculating, you want to know the exact increase in the production. You will take into account only the increase of production. That means now second situation is this production becomes 150, right? This production becomes 150. Now what happens? There is real increase in the production, so it is giving you the real picture of GDP, hence it is said to be real GDP. you never take into account the inflation part in the real GDP. Keep it in mind, because real GDP means you want to know the real production in the economy, and that real production simply means the increase in the production levels. If you are taking into account inflation, that means it is trying to misguide you, right? So real GDP is nothing but it is giving you the real picture of production, right? So real GDP is always calculated at the base price. For example, in 2001, what we did, we calculate the value of GDP at the price of rupees 10, right? Then only it will come to 1000 now. So real GDP is nothing but if you are calculating the monetary uh, production level at the base price, that means at the rate of 2000 levels, then it is your real GDP. In this case, you are calculating the real GDP. What is the real production level in the GDP? This is your real GDP, right? Now, if you go otherwise, the second method, second, what you can do like, again in 2001, the production is 100, but it is costing you 15. That means it becomes 1500. That means your GDP has increased from 1000 to 1500. That means when you are calculating the GDP at the current prices means inflated prices, it is called, termed as nominal, right? So the best way to understand this is, real GDP means you want to know the real production level in the GDP, as simple as that. You want to know the real production level in the GDP. Real production in the GDP level means you want to know that how much of the production has increased, and that you can only know when, because ultimately everything is in the monetary terms, right? So that means how you will come to know that what is the in monetary terms, that means you have to make prices constant, right? You have to make the prices constant. That means you will multiply the rate cost of the product will be the base price, right? That means 2000 in this example. So this is the concept of the real GDP and nominal GDP. So what is the use of this concept of real GDP and nominal GDP? See, when we'll discuss in, I think one individual in the previous class, when I was discussing about this inflation, we discussed a bit about inflation. Then somebody said that he raised the question regarding that if there is inflation in this 6%, 7%, then is this the real inflation in the economy? There was some question, very beautiful question from your side, right? Actually, the answer to that question lies in this. In that discussion, uh, I told you one thing, that this inflation is nothing but it is about a basket, right? If we are measuring CPI, if the RBI is saying that this is the CPI is 6%, that means this 6% inflation is in the products which is part of basket. For example, if there are 500 something product, this inflation is only concerned about these 500 products. It might be a possibility that here inflation is only 6%, and the 501 product which is out of this basket, it might be having inflation of 25%, or it might be having inflation of only 1%, right? So this inflation is expressing you the inflation in this basket, right? So now coming to this part, what is the use of this nominal and real GDP? What is it itself? There is a term called GDP deflator, right? This is a term GDP deflator. This is very important. I think question has not been asked. See, what I have taught today, UPSC perhaps has not asked question on all these concepts like production subsidy, production taxes, GDP deflator, nominal. But UPSC, these questions are pending. See, when I am telling you that these questions are pending, that means there is high probability of UPSC to ask all these things, right? So please go through all these concepts in detail, right? GDP deflator, what does it mean? as I stated that your nominal GDP was telling you about inflation, right? While your real GDP was not accounting your inflation. There was no calculation of your accounting of inflation in the concept of real GDP, correct? So what does it mean? It means that first of all, you should be very much clear about the thing that GDP is telling you about the whole economy. GDP is telling you about the whole economy, first thing. Secondly, if this term, for example, I took the example of 100 pence and I assume that the economy is only producing the 100 pence. So in 2000, as I discussed previously, that it was costing 1000 rupees, right? And again, I said that it was costing at the rate of 15. The production was still 100 rupees and it becomes 1500, correct? Now, if you take out this ratio, 1500 upon 1000, then it is giving you a ratio of 1.5. What does this signify? It signifies that there is inflation of 1.5. In percentage terms, the inflation becomes 150%, right? This term is telling you that the whole economy is facing is realizing an inflation rate of 150%. That means this term is telling you the inflation in the whole economy, unlike the CPI thing, right? So this GDP deflator is considered to be the best parameter of calculating the inflation, right? Now, if this GDP deflator is the best parameter to calculate the inflation across the economy, then why it is not popular? Can anybody answer? Can anybody answer this? Just apply your mind, because even I don't expect that you should answer it correctly. Any idea? Because GDP is calculated at the end of year. To an extent you are right, but you should not say end of the year. It is every quarter, right? Yes, you have reached to the point. Now I'll explain you what's the reason. See, uh, in the economy, in the context of economy, for example, there is inflation in the food products, right? Food, fuel, right? There's food and fuel inflation, and this inflation affects individual on a day-to-day basis. Keep it in mind. The poor is feeling all the pinch of this inflation, on a day-to-day basis. Now assume that your GDP deflator is GDP is coming. GDP parameters are coming in a quarter, right? After 3 months, right? And after 3 months, when this data is coming, and when this data is coming, might be a possibility that the things have normalized when this GDP, quarterly GDP, is being announced, right? Or if you take on the other hand, when government came up with certain measures to control the inflation, then it might be too late, because span of 3 months is too big, right? It is too big, because this person who is poor requires relief on a day-to-day basis, or at the max it requires measures for relief at once, right? So better is to have any parameter which is coming either on a monthly basis, right? So the RBI relied upon the data of CPI, which is coming on a monthly basis, right? So this is one of the reasons why GDP deflator is not being relied upon by this RBI for monetary policy in their bi-monthly policy, right? So this is all about the GDP deflator and the concept of nominal GDP, real GDP. Nominal and real GDP are very confusing. So the best way to learn is only go for the word real. And real literal sense means real production level, right? What is the real level of production in your economy? And real production of level does not account the inflation part, right? So don't get confused by real and nominal thing. This is all about your GDP part. Yes, in 2015, there was in the parameters of GDP calculations were changed. There were hue and cry across. If you are following newspapers in those times, so the Congress was arguing that why this government has done so, right? And the data is being manipulated, right? There were n number of stories because the one or two statistician on record stated that the government was playing with the data, they are manipulating the data, and they are bringing the data just to demoralize the performance of the UPA government, right? Stories apart, but you must be aware that there is change in the parameters of every 5 years, right? This is a ritual. First thing. Secondly, it is in accordance to the changes in the first changes in the economy. Second, to take into account the new methodologies adopted worldwide, right? So these parameters are changed on a periodic basis. Now, what are the changes taking place? Right? What were the changes? First change was the base year was changed from 2004-5 to 11-12, right? See, what is the this use of this base year? Base year, the use of the base year is because you should have certain base for comparison, right? Now, why this base year is being changed? The reason is, for example, the economy in 2004 was having, for example, composition in the economy, primary sector, secondary, tertiary, right? The best ways to start it from 1991, right? For example, in 1991, and now 2020. Now assume a situation that we see, you should have certain base for comparison now. So for example, you were having certain basis for comparison in 1991, and that basket was having for example, primary sector was contributing about for imaginary term it was 25%. Secondary was sorry, it was around 40%. Secondary was taking into account this 20, and tertiary again 20, right? 40, this 30, 30, right? Now, can you imagine that the situation in 1991 can be compared to the economy of 2020? Not at all, because various things has changed since 1991. So to realize the actual picture in the economy, you have to revise the base year, because your comparison year should be anything which is more relevant nowadays. So if you say that you are trying to compare the economy of 2020 with 1990s, it will be comparing like apple to the oranges, right? So base years are always revised on a periodic basis, so that you can take into account the more real picture of the economy, right? I think you get my point. So base year is to be revised on a periodic basis. Accordingly, in 2015, the government changed base year from 2004-5 to 11-12. There is again a caveat in this. This 2004-5 was to be changed with 2009-10, right? Because I am saying that it is to be revised after every 5 years. But this was delayed for 11 and 12, because you might be recalling that this 2011 year was the census year. And the government was assuming that this census data will open up many vistas, and they will take into account various other things which will be better be taken from the census data. So this base year was changed from 2004-5 to 11-12. I think this is clear. So this is change of base year is a common occurrence, and is done to take into consideration changing times and the outlook of the economy. It is clear, right? Second, from where the data is to be taken, right? prior to this year, the data was being taken from various methods. In next slides, we will read IIP, Index of Industrial Production, right? Or any of the data, they are taking data from RBI, from N number of surveys, right? But there was not a single source of this information. Now, what government has asked, the government has said that every company, I think I discussed it the way back, that every company which is being incorporated in India has to register with the portal MCA 21. It is a Ministry of Corporate Affairs portal. Every company, be it small or large, have to register itself with the this portal. That means it is one stop shop where you will find all the data related to each and every company in this country, right? Every company has to register, every company which is a part of the formal economy, right? Keep it in mind, it is a part of formal economy. And here whatever we are discussing is talking about in only formal economy. We are not discussing or taking into account the part of the informal economy, right? So every company which is being registered in this country is to be registered with this portal MCA 21. Hence, now onwards, this data for GDP is to be taken from this portal MCA 21. Every company is being registered with this portal. And the third is GDP calculation is being shifted to market prices rather than factor cost. Can anybody tell me that GDP in the new calculation will increase or decrease? Just apply logic, common sense. Whether GDP will increase or decrease if calculated on market price rather than the factor cost. Initially, it was the factor cost. Correct. Yes, yes, yes. Everybody is saying increase. Anybody for decrease? That means you are understanding the concept, right? It is very good that you are understanding the concepts. Right, yes, it will increase because the implication of taxation is more in India, and moreover, the implication of the subsidies is getting down day by day, right? So the GDP value was increased, right? So if at that time you can recall the arguments of the Congress, they were saying that the government has come up with the idea so as to manipulate the data, and the data is being manipulated in the sense that they are showing the GDP is growing more during the time of NDA, right? But politics apart, this is the actual story of GDP revision, right? There is no politics about it, right? Yes, there were various arguments which were even the issues raised by many statisticians, but we have nothing to do about that. The concept of GDP back series, it was very popular at that time also. Even one of the statisticians resigned only because of this idea, right? What happened, that government came up with the idea, right? That government revised the GDP data based upon this. What was logic for shifting it to market price? See, Hari, it was the basis for market prices. This practice is being followed worldwide, right? There is a concept of United Nations SAN. There is accounting system of UN, right? Which is being followed across the world. It is said to be UNSAN, right? You can Google it. It is a accounting practice which is being practiced by the developed world, right? And that's why, and it take into account the GDP at the market price. That's why we followed. मैं बोला ना, I think uh, I haven't put it into words here, that this changes in the GDP parameters was taken into account the best practices across the world, which the developed world are using, right? And it is being recommended by UN, right? UN accounting system. So the concept of GDP back series is nothing but you are recalculating the GDP of the UPA 2 times with the new parameters, right? And it was done, I don't know how it was done, but effectively it was shown that initially what happened when they released the data, then it was being shown that the GDP was growing very good in the times of UPA 2, but later on they came up with, I don't know which parameter, then they stated that the growth during the time of UPA 2 was comparatively lesser than the NDA. So there was hue and cry across the political sector, right? So this is, you have just to understand that what was the concept of the GDP back series, nothing else, right? I don't think that GDP back series will, see, UPSC never ask anything which is politically controversial. Keep it in mind. They never ask you anything which is controversial politically. Green GDP, right? This is all about your technicals of GDP, right? GBA, GDP, market cost, factor cost, producer's price, basic price, production taxes, product taxes, right? So please go through the NCRT for all these concepts, right? Should I continue or stop? It's up to you. Please put it on the chat whether I should continue or not, because it will be taking next 15 to 20 minutes. Or should I ask you the questions? Continue. Okay. Okay, I'm continuing. Now, when we were discussing, we discussed the concept of the green GDP. See, green GDP is nothing. It is actually the modern idea, which is saying that you cannot neglect the environmental part, right? Because you have to take in account the depreciation in the environment, right? So what they are saying, it is an index of income, economic growth with the environmental consequences of that growth factored into country's conventional GDP, right? So if you say, if you see, if you are going through recent stories, so there is a committee, parliamentary committee, which is being chaired by this, I think, Jairam Ramesh, and they are creating some issue. They are discussing something or any bill related to this environment, right? This concept of environmental impact assessment, right? So this whatever is going on, right, it has raised the questions that there is a debate between environment and growth, environment and development. Literally growth, it is not development, it is growth. Environment versus growth, right? So this government, the government, see, the government, whosoever is in the power, they are always of the opinion that it should be growth at any cost, right? Keep it in mind. The governments are only amused by these numbers, right? These GDP numbers. So, and opposition is most of the time raising the questions of environment. On one hand, they will say why there is no growth, and on the other hand, they will say, okay, don't destroy the environment. So this is there are certain checks and balances, right? So there should be a middle path, Buddha's middle path, right? Buddha's middle path, and on the in the same manner, you have to do growth, right? But on the other hand, you have to ensure that it should not deteriorate the environment so that it is not available to the future generations. That is the concept of the sustainable development, right? So the green GDP is nothing but it is taking into account all the deteriorations in the environment, right? So it is taking into account, and the deterioration is being monetized, right? So if you are aware or not, I'll tell you one thing, that whenever there is establishment of a new project, right? So what happens, there is in every state there is concept of, there is an environmental ministry, or there will be any board which is taking into account, which is taking care of the environmental part, right? So what happens that there is, for example, environmental impact assessment. So for example, if there is a factory which is to be institutionalized in a forest area, so it can be a possibility that in that forest area there is a loss of biodiversity, right? Biodiversity loss. It might be a possibility that there is a loss of forest, right? So what happens, that the factory owner, first there will be study by the state department, and they will tell you, they will put a report before the government, and they will tell you that there is loss of so and so, so and so, so and so. Now what they will ask to the government, oh sorry, factory owner, they will say, look, Mr. X, there is losses of this is the list. This is for example, this is tree, neem tree, this is this X bird, this is peacock, this is tiger, they have to be relocated. So you And after that, this report stated, this report monetizes all these losses. Monetizes in the sense, they will say, okay, we will first purchase a land from the state government. We will try to plant, like we will try to develop forest here. We will try to relocate all the animals here. We will try to relocate biodiversity here, and for that you have to pay 100 crores. That means they are monetizing the biodiversity losses, they are monetizing the environmental losses, right? So this money is to be deposited with that board, and that money is utilized to develop this lost biodiversity, right? This is what I'm telling you, the practical part, right? It happens, right? I have seen all these things, so that's why I'm telling, even those who are in industries might be knowing all these things, right? It happens. So green GDP is nothing, it is taking into account, it is taking monetization of loss of biodiversity, it is accounting for cost caused by climate change, it is subtracting resource depletion, environmental degradation, it is helping to more manage both economies as well as resources. That is middle path. You have to have a trade-off between economy and the resources, right? I think it is clear the concept. This is the concept of the green GDP. Next is Human Development Index. It was developed by Mehboobu'l Haq and Amartya Sen, right? There are three components to this. There are three dimensions: longevity, knowledge part, decent standard of living. There are three components, and the first is indicators are life expectancy at birth, right? What is the probability of an individual to survive at the birth time, right? Then knowledge. There are two components of the knowledge part. This is expected school years of schooling. This is actually telling you about adult literacy. Adult literacy means that what has been the mean years of schooling of individuals having age 25 or above, right? It is telling you about, I think I have used this term anywhere else, mean of years of schooling for adults aged 25 and more. Actually it is nothing but it is telling you about the adult literacy. This term is nothing but it is adult literacy. Whether how many of the adult are literate means they are having certain definitions. For example, whether you can write and read, whether you can sign, right? So this component is adult literacy, and other is expected years of schooling for children of school entering age. That means it is basically about there's a term GER, gross enrollment ratio. It is telling you about that what has been the number of years of children in the school. What is the mean year of your children in the school? This is also the second term is gross enrollment ratio. That means how many of your children has enrolled in primary, secondary, and tertiary education, right? So this is your this HDI. Standard of living is calculated by gross national income per capita. One thing more, even in the first day I told you that please keep it in mind which report is being published by which organization. UPSC will ask you all these things, right? This it either you can take it a part of static part, or secondly I told you whenever any report is in the news, right? For example, I discuss about you ease of doing business, right? So whenever any report is highlighting the performance of India in such a manner that it is very critical from Indian point of view, and that story has been discussed in the media for more than 10 or 15 days, then please go through that report. And every report you should be knowing that who is publishing that report. It is very important, right? Next is multidimensional index. See, multi-dimensional index, I think I am expecting this question again. And I don't know whether it has been asked. I don't know. I think it has been asked. If it has not been asked, then I am expecting question on this, right? Multi-dimensional index is nothing but it is again elaborated HDI, right? It is elaborated SDI. Elaborated SDI means that it is having, broadly it is having 3 dimensions, right? As mentioned in the HDI, it is having 3 dimensions similar to the HDI, but these 3 dimensions are further classified into 10 things, right? 10 indicators of poverty. And the beauty of this multi-dimensional index is that it is micromanaging the things. It is at the micro level. For example, what was happening in SDI, they were telling you about the health part. They were telling you about the longevity. But what it is telling you, it is telling you about the nutrition, child mortality, right? Living standard, we were saying that GNI, gross national income, right? That means, for example, if a gross national income of a country is, for example, $12,000 per annum, but do you think that is it reflecting the actual picture of the economy? Not at all. It can be a possibility that an individual might be earning only $6,000 or might be $2,000 per annum. Can you compare this person with the person who is earning $12,000, or one person might be earning $50,000? So it is telling you about that you are calculating the living standard on these basis. That means you will having a data that individuals who are not having cooking fuel, sanitation, drinking water, electricity, flooring, assets. That means you are micro analyzing the situation of the individual. So multi-dimensional index is nothing but it is providing you more detailed analysis about the poverty of the individuals, right? It is micro analyzing the poverty at the micro level, right? So this is the multi-dimensional index, and it is being published by this Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative and UNDP, right? UNDP is also publishing this HDI, right? So next is gross national happiness. It is unique in the sense because it was, I think, 2 or 3 years back, it was very much popularized across the world that the Bhutan has came up with the idea of the gross national happiness. Even UN recognized this concept, right? So it is fact part that it was coined by fourth king of Bhutan, Jigme Singye Wangchuk in 1970s. And it implies that sustainable development should take a holistic approach, right, towards notions of progress and given equal importance to non-economic aspects of well-being, right? It is clear, I think. 4 pillars of GNHR, right? This is important. First, good governance. Second, preservation and promotion of culture. It is clear. Conservation of the environment. And fourth, sustainable and equitable socio-economic development, right? It is nothing specific about it. Just go through these 4. You have to learn these 4 pillars of GNH, right? And where it belongs to Bhutan, right? And nothing special about it. Okay, this is the last slide in this discussion. IIP question has been asked in UPSC, and I am expecting question on PMI, right? I think if you are going through the newspapers, economy part of the newspaper, this term is coming again and again. Can anybody tell me that if you are going through the newspapers, what is the recent value of PMI if you have gone through the newspapers? I think 2 or 3 days back, there was news story about this purchasing managers index. Can you tell me any idea what was the value? Yes, right. Absolutely right. Hari Krishna is absolutely right. Correct. Absolutely correct. It was around 46. Absolutely correct. Right. See, now GDP was telling you at macro level, right? Now we want to know that what is happening at the sectoral level. So in sectoral level, if you're talking about manufacturing part, right? Because this manufacturing part is effectively, they see, if you see these industries, coal industry, fertilizer industry, electricity, crude oil, natural gas, refinery products, steel and cement, these are the fundamental industries which are required in a country to establish the basic infrastructure, right? I think in UPSC it was asked as which core industries are part of IIP, and there were certain 5 options for there, right? So what does it mean? This index will be telling you about anything which is related to these 8 sectors, and these 8 sectors, industries are the core industries which are critical for development of infrastructure. So if there is increase in the IIP, that means what is happening? These core industries are growing, isn't it? If these core industries are growing, that means a huge infrastructure development is taking place. If huge infrastructure development is taking place, that means capital investment is taking place. When capital investment is taking place, that means huge employment is taking place, right? Huge employment means your economy is growing. And more than that, these sectors are job intensive, right? That means the growth taking place in this sector is actually jobful growth. Are you getting my point? That means IIP, if IIP is increasing, that means your manufacturing sector is increasing, or the fundamental infrastructure sectors are increasing. So IIP measures volume changes in the production of an economy, correct? Production provides a measurement that is free of influences of price changes, right? It has nothing to do with the price changes because it is only telling you about the changing in these sectors. For example, if manufacturing was, take mining, if mining initially was for 10 tons, so it is concerned if it will be supposed to be increasing if it becomes 11 tons, right? So it is only telling you about the production level changes. Keep it in mind, it is production, not the influence of the price changes, right? It is released by CSO, right? I think it has become now NSO, National Statistics Office. Please check this out, right? And it is clear 8 core industries are covered under IIPR, right? You have to learn all these because UPSC can ask you again anything, right? And you should be aware of this ascending or descending number that you are not supposed to know the percentage, but you should be knowing, you must be knowing that manufacturing is more than the mining, which is more than the electricity part, right? This is all about our IIP. Now try to, whenever there is news is coming regarding IIP, right, try to correlate this static part with the dynamic, right? I think you are clear how to correlate the things. Now this is purchasing managers index. This is the last thing we will be discussing, right? It is telling you about the economic health of the manufacturing sector. That means this is again a micro analysis of IIP, this part, right? This is telling you specifically of this part. It is released by ISM, Institute for Supply Management. It is an NGO in US, and PMI of more than, you have to understand only one thing. If PMI is 50, there is no change in the manufacturing. There is no change in the manufacturing. If it is more than 50, then manufacturing is increased. If it is less than 50, then manufacturing is decreased. And nowadays, what Mr. Hari stated that it is 46. That means your manufacturing is, this is how you have to correlate the things, right? And there are 5 sub indexes in the PMI. It is production level. It is clear. New orders. New orders means there is demand in the economy. Demand. Inventories. That means how much of stock you are having with you which can be supplied to the people. Employment level, naturally if there is manufacturing, huge manufacturing, then employment levels will increase. Then supplier deliveries. For example, if you realize the present situation, what is happening nowadays, even if there is demand, might be a possibility that there is no labor. I think in Telangana, your government uh, bring back these laborers via aeroplane. If I am not wrong, I think it was Telangana or Andhra, if I am not wrong, right? So it might supplier deliveries can also delay, na? Because on account of there might be any issue with the factory, there can be labor unrest, or there can be issue with the raw material, right? So out of these, there's 5 sub-indices in PMI which are being accounted for calculating this purchasing managers index, right? So I think you are clear with the concepts. Please, monetary policy and this GDP part, right? Don't take it lightly. I'm telling you again and again. You might feel that, oh, it is very easy, but when you are going to solve the questions now, it will give you a headache. Definitely, it is going to give you a headache. So please go through all the questions. One more thing. Okay, I want to share one thing with you. Uh, See, this is a recent the status of repo rate. If you have gone through Indian Express, it was in the Indian Express. So if you see this, okay, I think it is not. This is it being shared or not? Are you seeing this cutting of paper, Indian Express paper, which is showing you revision in policy rates? Okay. See, now if you see this, okay, I got it. Actually, I'm not able to this highlight this, so don't worry. So what is it saying? These bank rates are consistently decreasing, right? These are decreasing. The most fluctuating part is this repo rate, right? SLR has not changed, right? CRR has is being reduced, but the most thing which is being changing on a date, the most changing thing is repo and reverse repo. That means RBI is only playing with the repo and reverse repo rate. Keep it in mind. That's why I stated you, it is these repo rate and reverse repo rate are the critical interest rates. These are the critical interest rates. They are very critical for the economy because RBI is taking cognizance on only of these rates in their biomonetary policy. Everything like this SLR, CRR, bank rate, OMO, these are secondary things, right? These are RBI is taking cognizance of all these things once in a while. For example, regarding OMO, they are coming in a year, right? But every quarterly, every bi-monthly, sorry, they are most of the time they are changing these repo and reverse repo rate. They are playing only with the repo and reverse repo rates, right? They are least playing with all other things. Now, one thing, yesterday I go through one or two questions, those who have shared with me. One thing that whenever there is, the question is asking you about this definition, right? Please write the pointed definition. Write the pointed definition. For example, if I am asking you, the examiner is asking you sustainable development definition, the examiner is only interested in the definition of sustainable development, which is saying that you have to put that is defined definition, right? That it is for the future generation. You have to maintain intergeneration equity in terms of resources. Please don't write the stories. I am telling you again and again. Please don't write the stories, first thing. And secondly, right, see, don't get demoralized because even I am not expecting that it is good to go through your answers, because I am not expecting answers from your side at this level because it is the initial stage. Even in the very first, while I give you questions, I stated that it's just only for your understanding. Please brainstorm on those questions, right? The objective is not that you should write questions and in a very because one student was asking that, sir, I am taking too long to write the answers. Yeah, it is the starting. You don't know that now we have only gone through monetary policy and this GDP. It is, I think only we have discussed only 15 to 20% of the syllabus, right? So 80% of the syllabus is uncovered. You can only write about something when you are knowing about something now. So that's why I am saying you again and again, first go through the syllabus, right? Then only try to write down. It is better if you are writing, it is very good, right? Because you have to develop certain practices. For example, so talking about the definitions, if you have been asked the definition, please don't beat around the bush. Definition means definition. If he is asking you monetary policy transmission, then it is very clear. Monetary policy transmission is nothing but the transmission of the announced monetary policy from RBI to the last customer. You are not supposed to write that monetary policy transmission will do this and that and that. This you have to write in the next paragraphs. In the very first paragraph, you should open your mind to the examiner, that the person is very clear about the concept. Because examiner is looking, see, examiner is only, keep it in mind, examiner is only concerned about the question of the UPSC, right? Because he is analyzing you on that basis only, because there are n number of things under the sun, right, which you know about, right? But what is the basis of analyzing your performance? It is only the question now. So you should only write what has been asked in the question. So it is not suppose that examiner is not interested that what do you know. He is only interested in the thing that what do you know about the question asked by the UPSC. So he is only concerned about the UPSC. UPSC has told him that analyze this student on these parameters, and the parameter is the basis of the basis is the question asked by the UPSC, nothing else. So please don't write what you know, right? Write only the things which are relevant to the question, right? For example, if you are writing and secondly, whenever you are writing the questions, right? That I think yesterday somebody gave me this. They were making graphs, right? It is very good. Try to develop your, for example, if you are talking about monetary policy, right? When we discuss this means, for example, we are discussing jobless growth. So you should develop your own graphs. Graphs means any workflow. It is not required that you should be artistic in putting any diagram before UPSC exam. It is not required at all, because you are only supposed to put something new, because it should not be monotonous, right? And if you are simply putting this workflow, it is very good. So try to develop, create all those graphs, because by the time you are coming for, you are appearing for the mains, right? Until that time, you should be having, for example, every topic will be having 1 or 2 graphs, right? So try to develop all those flow charts, right? Easily. I am not talking again, there is no artistic thing required. Only easily what you can prepare easily. Simple graphs, right? Only putting monetary policy transmission, RBI, financial between financial intermediary, right, and then last customer, right? Simple. The examiner will be knowing, okay, the person is very much clear about the concept of the monetary policy transmission, right? So this is all about you inclusive growth. Inclusive growth means that you have to talk about every that what I discussed in that slide, everything you are clear about the inclusive growth, right? So this is all about what we have discussed. Isn't there any index for services? See, services, right question, because recently, if I can correctly recall, in Indian Express there was a news story which tells that services has contracted, right? But I don't think there is any this any index. I think CSO is coming up with this idea only, right? So let me check it out, right? If there is any specific sector, if there is any specific index, but I don't think there is any formal index recognized by the government of India for this. Any other thing? I think it's too much for today. Please go through the last year questions. Again and again, I am telling you, please go through the last year question papers of UPSC, especially there many questions on monetary policy. Every year you will find questions on monetary policy, the combination of CRR, repo rate, inflation, liquidity, everything you will be finding, right? So please go through the monetary, this monetary policy, GDP, and all the concept which we have discussed, PMI, IIP, all the questions, right? Thank you very much. Bye bye.